Okay, we are going to be studying the Midrash on Parashat Terumah, and we are starting. Let's read some of the psukim. So, just if you guys over there, you guys have the page.
Where do you want us to go in the Parsha?
Good question. Let's start with the first pasuk, and then we're going to jump. So let me just find the page. The very beginning of Parashat Terumah. That's Perek Kafei, pasuk out chapter 25, verse 1. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and read. Hashem spoke to Moshe, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel, and let them take for me a portion from every man whose heart motivates him. You shall take my portion." This is not the verse we'll be focusing on. Okay. Just 1 second. I see it looks a little too bright here. Okay, this is not the pasuk we'll be focusing on. So Hashem says to Moshe, tell everyone who wants they should bring donations, and the purpose of these donations is for what? For the Mishkan, to build the tabernacle. And then the verses go on all the way from verse 3 until goes on several psukim, talks about the materials, the raw materials that people can and should bring: gold, silver, the different types of cloth, the different types of materials, right? And now we're going to jump to verse 8. And this is the verse we're going to be discussing. Okay, but I do want to keep in mind verse 2. Verse 2 was, "Speak to the children of Israel and let them take from me a portion," etc. But the verse 8 is the verse we're going to be discussing. It says the following: "Ve'asu li migdash ve'shachanti betocham," which in English is, verse 8, "They shall make a sanctuary for me, so that I may dwell among them." Okay, that's it. That's our verse. That's the verse we will be discussing, and that is the verse that we're going to be questioning. It's a small verse. Seems pretty straightforward. Any questions? Anything? Okay, we're going to read it again. I see a few more people came in. Someone else came in. So we're looking at chapter 25, verse 8. They shall make a sanctuary for me, so that I may dwell among them.
There are two things that, one kind of obvious, but first of all, they shall make, so I shall dwell among them. Who's the them? Is that the Israelites?
Or what? What's the other option? Is it the Israelites, or is it? What's the other option?
Well, you don't. I mean, if you're building, you talk about building a building, and then you talk about dwelling amongst people who aren't in the building. It doesn't quite. The two don't necessarily go together.
Okay, wait. So is that a different question or the same question?
It's the same one, because then why build a sanctuary? Because if you're going to dwell amongst people who aren't in the sanctuary, why are you telling me?
Very good.
Sanctuary?
So you started off by asking the question: is he dwelling in the people, or could it be that the meaning is in them, in the materials? And you already answered it. You're assuming correctly that the pshat, both the literal and contextual understanding is that he will dwell amongst the people. And then the obvious question becomes: well, if you're going to dwell amongst the people, why do they need to build the building? Right? Okay, good. Other questions? Again, let's read the verse. They shall make a sanctuary for me, so that I may dwell among them. Questions? Yes?
Did you hear that, Rabbi?
Actually, it's written in Hebrew. It's like inside them.
Yeah. Wait, so no, so...
Like inside, it's like inside the people, not between the people.
What? Yeah. That's what Ron said. That Ron pointed out that it seems that God will reside among the people, and that led Ron to ask, then why do they need to build the building? God can reside amongst the people even without the building. Right? If he's saying he's going to build the building, they're going to build a building, and then he'll reside amongst the people. Well, if the point is to reside amongst the people, reside amongst the people. Why do you need the building? He's not residing there, he's residing in the people. That's what it would seem. Yeah.
Does Hashem need a place?
Excellent.
Reside?
Excellent. This is the simplest and biggest question on this verse, but not only on this verse. It really runs much, much deeper than that, this question. The question is, why does God need us to build him a house? I mean, that sounds anywhere between childish to pagan.
Because he is the owner of the entire world.
Right. God inhabits, we like to say inhabits the entire world, but of course much more than that. So what does it mean? You're going to build God a little, a house that he can live in? This seems, what? Yeah. What does this mean? Build me a house. Excellent. Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
It's not much a question, but it just follows that long list of the Israelites giving. So I don't know whether Hashem wants people to give of themselves in order to construct this. It's not that he needs the construction, but he needs people to give from what they have in order to make it.
So you're saying it's not about the actual building, it's about the process that they go through in building it.
Yeah, not the end product.
Okay. Yes, I absolutely agree. That makes a lot of sense, and I think that's true. The Midrash is I'm not going to say the Midrash is going to go in a different direction. The Midrash is going to do something, we'll see. Any other questions, comments, things to point out? Yes.
Yes. There is something very subtle hidden here. And we can confirm it afterwards in many other texts. Hashem Yitbarach is giving absolutely all the instructions for everything he wants. It is he that is giving in detail all the instructions, as I said, yeah. He's not building a house. He's building a house in this way, and 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 this way.
Okay, so he's saying it's about following the instructions.
Yeah, because we saw in the situation of Aaron and his sons and many
other
situations that people do. We react by ourselves, and this is not
right. There was another comment or question.
Okay. This may be completely off track, but how do we know that Tochanim among the people cannot mean more than one sanctuary? I know it says it in singular, but it could be that there are many sanctuaries, and you know well of all of them.
Okay. I like that interpretation, and my guess is I haven't seen it in Midrash, but I would not be surprised at all if there is a Midrash that says exactly what you're saying, that V'shachanti betocham, I will dwell in them, referring to the many tabernacles and the many Batei Mikdash, many temples. I haven't seen that in the Midrash, but it rings a familiar bell, so it's very possible that there is. That doesn't sit well. The reason I'm saying it sounds familiar is because maybe I saw it once, but I don't remember that. But it sounds like a classic thing for Midrash to say, which is it really sounds classic. It doesn't fit with the rest of the pasuk because it says Vasuli Mikdash, which is singular. They shall make for me. Sorry, just a second. Yeah, Vasuli Mikdash. And they shall make for me a sanctuary, which is singular, and I will reside in them. But again, if this appeared in the Midrash, this wouldn't bother us at all, because the Midrash doesn't have to take, as we've said many, many, many times, the Midrash doesn't always need, and many times doesn't, bind itself to what is written in other places, in other Midrashim, in other chapters, and even in its own verse. The fact that at the beginning of the verse it talks in singular does not, again, in the world of the Midrash, does not bind the end of the verse to be talking in the singular. That's part of the world of Midrash, that it could look at one word, two words, and say in them. You're only building one Mishkan now. So what is in them? This is a hint, or this is a reference to the many other temples or sanctuaries that will be built. So it is a beautiful interpretation. I wouldn't be surprised if it's in the Midrash, and if it isn't, then it could be your Midrash. Yes, okay. So yes, it could mean that. It could mean that. Yes.
I find it intriguing that the word is so, not and. It's making it sound like I won't dwell amongst you unless you build the sanctuary. And that also implies what? Hashem, until the sanctuary was built, wasn't dwelling amongst the Israelites?
Aha. Okay. This leads us, so now we have two questions. The first question, we have more than two questions. We have two questions that I'm interested in that will take us to the Midrash. The first one is Batia's question, which is why is this structure needed? What is the purpose of this structure? Meaning, or more accurately, does God really need us to build him a house? Okay, what does it mean that God, and then the second is Ron's question, which I'm going to change slightly, but I think it's the same question, which is, what was the situation before? Meaning, what is changing once the Mishkan is built? Meaning, were they not? Meaning, why? This goes back, I guess, to your first question. Why is the sanctuary needed for God to dwell among them? Or what? Does this mean that until the Mishkan is built, God did not or would not reside among them? Why? Yes. Yes, we have another question or an attempted answer?
It's to try to give us a direction of why the Mishkan was necessary. Possibly that up until this time, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's place of engagement or talking to with Moshe was at Har Sinai. And up until this time, they didn't have the Mishkan. The Mishkan was also erected and built at Har Sinai. When they left Har Sinai, the place of communication for HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Moshe became between the Cherubim, which was in the Mishkan, which was in the Holy
Okay, therefore what? Everything you said is 100% correct. Therefore what?
Therefore, this became the place of communication between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Bnei Yisrael and Moshe when they left Har Sinai.
But wait, but how is that an answer? That makes it even more difficult. Why do you need this building? You didn't need this building. You didn't need this building for Moshe to communicate with Hashem and for Hashem to communicate with Moshe at Har Sinai. You didn't need this structure for Hashem to communicate with the Jewish people when with the giving of the Torah and the Ten Commandments.
You did it from Har Sinai.
Okay, so
that was the place.
So do it from the next dune.
He did it before as well, though.
Yeah, do it from the next dune or the next Har Sinai. Why do you need a structure?
Just Moshe. It's true.
What?
Call Moshe and Aaron or whatever, but not for all.
Okay. We need to head into the Midrash, because although the Midrash we're going to see is a slightly short Midrash, we're going to need some time in order to understand. And this is going to be another example of a Midrash that on the one hand is going to get very, very technical, and it's going to be a good example of seeing how when you read Midrash, we tend to just kind of run through it and kind of take it at face value and usually belittle. We just kind of assume that they're just saying stuff. And either you like the idea, or you don't like the idea. Either you believe them or you don't believe them. But we'll see, as we saw a few times the last few weeks, that the rabbis of the Midrash, there's a lot of information that they are bringing that is behind the scenes of what they are saying. And not just my own, making it into some big wow idea. There's a lot of actual detail that they are relying on, a lot of knowledge that they are relying on that forms the Midrash. And from that, they come and they say a whole bunch of more profound things. Okay, so it says let's read the Midrash. So again, I have two questions. Why are we being commanded to build this house for God? And the second, which I think is maybe even the more crucial question, the question we're going to deal with more, which is, why is the Mishkan necessary for God to dwell amongst the Jewish people? And a spin of that is, what was the situation that caused the fact that without the Mishkan, that's what it seems, without the Mishkan, God would not dwell amongst the people? Why?
Sir, there is another question.
Yes.
Having said everything you just said, the summary, so the question would be, what is happening with all those details? Why does a human being, which is not an engineer, be interested in knowing how many tapaot, how many detail and detail? This certainly is shouting. There are lots of secrets. There are lots of meaning among all those.
Absolutely. And the truth is, the Midrash speaks.
We cannot approach that meaning. So what is the meaning of, what is the purpose of all these details?
So, a very good question, and the Midrash speaks about that also. Speaks about the detail, and the Midrash in several places goes into detail about each one of them and explains the significance. But regretfully, that's not the Midrashim. The Midrash we'll be looking at. So that will have to wait for a different time. So let's jump in. Says the Midrash, and let them make a sanctuary that I may dwell among them. And I apologize, I'm not looking at you. I'm looking off to the side because I didn't have a chance to print the page. So I'm reading from another screen. And let them make a sanctuary that I may dwell among them. On which day did he relate to Moshe the portion relating to the temple? Meaning the Midrash asks a question which I think we'll see soon is Ron's question, but the Midrash is asking it in a different way. On which day? The Midrash's question is, when is this happening? What is the chronology? Right? Last week was right. We just finished. We come to this week's parsha. The next week's parsha. We just finished reading we just finished reading Mishpatim, the laws, that filled with a lot of mitzvot and laws. Right before that was the Ten Commandments. Okay, right was the Matan Torah, giving of the Torah and the Ten Commandments. So the Midrash wants to know, when is this being said? Okay, this mitzvah of you shall build for me a mishkan that I will reside among them, among the people. So the Midrash answers, it was on the Day of Atonement, on Yom Kippur. That was so. Okay, now wait. Now we have to understand that this is not so simple. Okay. Well, wait. We'll continue reading, and then afterwards we're going to go. Hopefully you guys saw that I sent 2 pages. And hopefully you printed the second page. If not, we'll bounce around in the Chumash. Continues the Midrash. That was so despite the fact that the Torah portion describing the sanctuary precedes the incident of the golden calf. Rabbi Yehuda, the son of Rabbi Shalom said, there is actually no such thing as preceding or following in the Torah. Okay, we saw this idea already, right? We saw this 2 weeks ago. There is, and he goes on to say, as is said, there's a quote from Proverbs, some Mishlei, lest she should walk the even path of life, her ways wander, but she knoweth it not. So he understands this verse referring to the Torah. That what? That her ways wander, meaning that the portions of the Torah can be mixed up. Okay? But she knoweth it not. She is the Torah. She is the Torah. He understands this verse in Proverbs as referring to the Torah, that her ways, the ways of the Torah, meaning the stories or the events or the verses of the Torah, they wander. What does that mean? They wander. They go here, they go there, they're earlier, they're later. It wanders. It's a mishmash. But she knoweth it not. Meaning, but the Torah doesn't know it. Meaning, the Torah thinks that it's written according to the chronological order, but she isn't really.
The Torah doesn't reveal it.
Yes, that's what it means. Not that the Torah doesn't know it. The Torah makes the Torah, the order of the Torah is mishmashed, but it doesn't look like it's mishmashed, but it is. Okay? I just want to finish this paragraph. Okay? This verse refers to the arrangement of the Torah and its sections. Hence, it was on the Day of Atonement that he told Moshe, make me a sanctuary. Now I know there's a question. I want to finish reading the Midrash first though. Okay? Because this seems, the obvious question on this is, like, what would cause the Midrash to say, like, what's going on here? Why would the Midrash come and say, the commandment of building a Mishkan took place on Yom Kippur? And why would this be a reason to come and say the Torah is written out of order? Like, what's going on here? What?
I mean, the implication is it was after the sin of the golden calf.
Right. So the question is, why? What would cause the Midrash to say this? Okay.
Because maybe after the golden calf, after the story of the golden calf, maybe the Torah would not. Maybe Hashem would not say, "Make for me a dwelling."
Okay, fine. Well, that is the direction we're going in. But let's continue in the Midrash. The Midrash knows that what it just said, at least at this stage, doesn't make sense or seems strange. So it goes and it's going to prove it. How do we know this to be so? Meaning, how do we know that this was said on the Day of Atonement? Moshe went up Mount Sinai on the 6th of Sivan. Right? That's Shavuot. Or that's, right? And remained there for 40 days and 40 nights. We're going to go over this again soon. He stayed there another 40 days, and then a final 40 days, totaling 120 days in all. Thus you find that it must have been on the Day of Atonement that he told Moshe about the temple. For it was on that day that they were forgiven. And on that day, the Holy One, blessed be He, told them, make me a sanctuary, that I may dwell therein, so that okay, now look at this. So that the nations might know that He had forgiven them for the episode of the golden calf. It was called the sanctuary of the testimony. In Hebrew, Mishkan Ha'edut. Edut is a witness or testimony. It was in the Torah. It's called Mishkan Ha'edut, the sanctuary of the testimony. For it bore witness to the nations of the world that the Holy One, blessed be He, dwelt within their sanctuary. Okay, there's a lot here. A lot more than it seems. We're going to leave the last two sentences at this. For now, we're going to put that on the side. We're going to get back to it. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to try to understand all these numbers and dates that were thrown around. Okay? Now again, you read this Midrash. Most people would read this Midrash, and they would just say, okay, 40, 40, 40, 120. But there's a lot of questions here. Okay, which is, really, what 120 days are being talked about here? How many, it's saying here that there are 3 different episodes of 40 days that Moshe Rabbeinu went up the mountain. And it's, someone, I can't see there, I'm being blocked, okay, sorry. Just wanted to say, I thought someone had their hand up. And, do you want to say something? Did you want to comment?
first 40 days was the receiving of the first luchot. The second, then he came down and he broke them. Then he went up for another 40 days for forgiveness. Then he stayed the third 40 days to receive the second set of luchot.
You are absolutely correct. Okay? And that's what we're going to see. We're going to go over the second page. We're going to just run through it. Okay? And the reason I want to do this is because because when the Midrash comes and says it, it already knows all these verses. It doesn't go ahead and quote all of them, but the rabbis are not just tossing around things. Okay? Let's look at the second page very quickly. We're just going to run through it. Shmot 19. This is from 2 weeks ago from Parsha Terumah. On the third month after the Israelites had gone forth from the land of Egypt, on that very day they entered the wilderness of Sinai. Okay? And that was on the first day of Sivan, plus 6 days, and the Itra in Parshat Terumah, it's very, very specific. It says he goes up, comes down, goes up, goes down, and then he says, okay, now 3 days, or it goes up again and comes down, okay, now 3 days, you should prepare yourselves. That brings us to the 6th day of Sivan. You'll see that in each paragraph here, I bolded the date that we're up to. In Shemot 24, which is in last week's Parsha, in Mishpatim, it said the following. Hashem said to Moshe, come up to me on the mountain and wait there, and I will give you the stone tablets with the teaching and command. So that happened last week. Last week Hashem said, okay, after I spoke, by the way, people don't realize this. Moshe Rabbeinu, during the 10 Commandments, wasn't up on the mountain. He was down at the bottom of the mountain with the Jewish people. And then Hashem says to him, come up to me. In chapter 24, says, come up to me on the mountain and wait there, and I will give you the stone tablets. So Moshe and his attendant Joshua arose, and Moshe ascended the mountain of Hashem. When Moshe ascended the mountain, the cloud covered the mountain. The presence of Hashem abode on Mount Sinai. Verse 18, Moshe went inside the cloud and ascended the mountain, and Moshe remained on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. So Moshe heard the 10 Commandments with all the other Jewish people at the bottom of the mountain. Then Hashem says, come up to me, because I want to give you something. I want to give you tablets. I want to give you something physical to take down and give the Jewish people. Moshe goes up for 40 days. That takes us to what date? The 16th day of Tammuz. What is the 16th day of Tammuz? A day before what?
17th of Tammuz.
Shiva Asar B'Tammuz. Okay? That's one of the 5 things, one of the 5 reasons why we fast on Shiva Asar B'Tammuz is because that's the day that the luchot were broken. So Moshe comes down the end of the 40th day on the 16th of Tammuz. And then, okay, what parsha appears now? Our parsha, Parsha Terumah. Parsha Terumah appears in the order of the Torah, appears here, between Shemot 24 and Shemot 32. Sorry, wait, I take that back. Sorry. No, sorry. In the Torah, not chronologically, in the Torah itself, in the order that appears, this is where Parshat Terumah starts. But then you go to Shemot 32. As soon as Moshe came near the camp and saw the calf and the dancing, he became enraged and he threw the tablets down and he broke the tablets. Verse 20, he took the calf that they had made and burnt it and ground it, etc. Verse 30, the next day, Moshe said to the people, you have been guilty of a great sin, yet I will now go up to Hashem. Perhaps I may win forgiveness for your sin. So that appears in Parshat Kitisa. But chronologically speaking, says the Midrash, when did it happen? It happened right after Parshat Mishpatim, right? Parshat Mishpatim, Moshe goes up for 40 days and 40 nights. And then Parshat Kitisa, it tells us he came down and broke the luchot. So you have Parashat Terumah in the middle, but says the Midrash, that's not where it's supposed to appear. Because the events themselves, it jumps from Parshat Mishpatim to Parshat Kitisa, as far as the actual events. Okay? Then we go to the next source, which is mentioned in Sefer Devarim. I threw myself down before Hashem, eating no bread and drinking no water, 40 days and 40 nights, as before, because of the great wrong you had committed, doing what displeased Hashem and vexing him. So we see here that after the sin of the golden calf, he went up the mountain again for 40 days and 40 nights to ask for forgiveness, as was said very accurately. Okay? So that now we're at, yes, someone had their hand up, yes.
Did Moshe come down after the second sin of 40 days?
That is an excellent question.
So that would be the day of forgiveness.
What is the question?
The question is, what is he says, if Moshe came down from the mountain after what is told to us in Devarim, then that would be the day of forgiveness. So, because the truth is, if you look at source at Devarim 9, it doesn't actually say that those 40 days and 40 nights took place on the mountain. There's a debate amongst commentators. Did the second period of 40 days and 40 nights, where was Moshe? Did he actually go up to the mountain? Or did he remain in the camp, secluded for 40 days and 40 nights? Okay, but for our purposes, it doesn't make a difference right now. Because it doesn't actually say he went up for these 40 days and 40 nights. It just said he threw himself down before Hashem, praying for 40 days and 40 nights. It doesn't say where.
But he needed that last set of 40 days in order to, once forgiven, receive the Torah.
Right,
again.
because our understanding is that the forgiveness is not complete until he receives the second luchot. Because it's not just enough that Hashem says, I forgive you, but because something was lost. It needs to go back to what was lost, right? So only when, that's the understanding, is that only once Moshe comes down with the second set of luchot, with the words of God engraved in them, then it is actual forgiveness. So let's look.
Is that just before Elul that he goes up?
Wait, so look, at the end of Devarim, right? At the end of Devarim, he goes up on the 18th of Tammuz for 40 days. That gets us to the 28th of Av.
Is this the reason, a question?
Yeah.
Is this the reason why this happens in Yom Kippur?
Absolutely. No, it's the opposite. That's why Yom Kippur became the Day of Atonement, because that's the day in which we received our atonement.
I understand that. We understand that. I'm asking if the order, the instruction to build for Hashem and Mishkan was done on Yom Kippur, because it is the first time in the Torah. It's a very important event. It's the first time maybe in the Torah in which atonement is possible for the human being.
Yes, obviously. Yes, for sure it's connected. Yes.
And the other question, the account you said, the number 120, did he live, I think his life was 120 years.
Who, Moshe? Yeah, Moshe lived 120 years.
So this is interesting, right?
Yes.
Is it coincidental?
This is very interesting.
Probably not. I never thought of that. He prayed, or he beseeched, for 120 days. Yeah, it's, I did not think of that. Okay. Shemot 34. Moshe carved out 2 tablets of stone, like the first. Right, that's an important phrase, like the first. We're trying to get back what we lost. And early in the morning, he went up on Mount Sinai. This is what was asked before, and you see, he doesn't tell us when he went down the mountain, because he might not have gone up for the second set of 40. Doesn't make a difference. He went up on Mount Sinai as Hashem had commanded him, taking the 2 stone tablets with him, and he was there with Hashem 40 days and 40 nights, ate no bread, drank no water, and he wrote down on the tablets the terms of the covenant, the 10 commandments. That takes us from the 29th of Av to the 9th of Tishrei.
So that implies just the middle 40 days were not up on the mountain. It's possible.
It is.
Say he carved them and then he went up with them.
So, in order to add, so it doesn't say anywhere explicitly that he went up for the second set of 40 days. On the other hand, if you look, it says, and if you look in Devarim 9, right? I threw myself down before Hashem, eating no bread and drinking no water 40 days, 40 nights, as before. So many commentators understand that as before means up on the mountain.
I thought the as before just meant I didn't eat and drink.
Could be. And there are other reasons to think that this did happen on the mountain, but there are other commentators who come and say, look, it doesn't actually say. In the other 2 times, it says explicitly he went up on the mountain, and he came down from the mountain. And in that one, it doesn't say either. But it is an interesting discussion, and the more interesting thing is to try to understand what was the situation if he actually did not go up to the mountain. So for 40 days and 40 nights, he's in the camp, but he's not engaged with other people. He's just praying. He's not eating and not drinking. And I think maybe the impact on the people would have been probably more profound if Moshe is still in the camp, but they know that he's not engaging in eating or drinking or any earthly things, and he's just praying on their behalf. So it is an interesting discussion, but I want to continue. Okay? But again, that's a good example of where the technical discussion is more than just a technical discussion about what exactly is said and isn't said, because the ramifications of the 40 days of praying is very different whether he's still in the camp or again went up on the mountain. So I actually like the interpretation of him in the camp praying more. It also fits better with the verses, and I think its significance is more significant as well. Yes.
But would he have been capable of remaining in the camp for 40 days and 40 nights, not eating and not drinking in the camp? Being on Mount Sinai gives him an elevation. He's now amongst the angels. He's the Kodesh HaKadoshim. In the camp, he's not. He's among the mortals.
Wait, no, so just 1 second. Sorry, my battery is starting to die out. Just 1 second. So, because of your question, I'd say think how much more amazing it is.
He was able to do it in the camp.
Yes, it becomes that much.
I understand that, but was it feasible? Is the other question. Could it have been feasible? Because when he's with the mortals, he's with the mortals. When he's up on Mount Sinai, he's with the angels. He's with the Kodesh Baruch Hu. He's actually leading from the mortal realm. He's actually entering into the realm of Kodesh.
So imagine how much more significant it is if he's able to do all that while staying in the camp.
And I guess we can never ask, is it feasible? Because if Hashem wanted to allow that to happen.
No, but I'm saying it. Okay. It is a very interesting and even an important side discussion, but we're actually not at the main point even yet. But it's fine. No, because there's actually a parallel midrash to this, to the one that I brought, long one that basically goes through all the verses to discuss and prove and disprove to see exactly what the count of days is. Okay? Because even though in our midrash it knew all of these verses, he knew all these verses, and that's what he was basing it on. Although if you just read the midrash, like okay, it's not just being said like this. All of the knowledge that they have is the foundation of what they're coming to say. So now, let's go back to our Midrash. On which day did he relate to Moshe the portion relating to the temple? It was on the Day of Atonement. That was so despite the fact that the Torah portion describing the sanctuary precedes the incident of the golden calf. So now we understand why he's saying it. Okay? And then he goes on to say, I'm jumping now to the last few... okay. So now we understand what he's saying. Okay? And now let's go back to Ron's question. Okay? Which was... Right, Ron, do we now have an answer to your question? Ron's question was, why do they need a building for God to reside among the people? Meaning, it seems as if they won't listen and build this building, God will not reside among them. Why not? And now, do we have an answer now? And the answer is yes, because of the sin of the golden calf.
They're at a lower level now.
Yes.
They can't have the relationship before without the building that they had, but they have to come on to this.
Right. So, on the day that they were atoned for the sin of the golden calf, they're told, you need to build for me a special place, and only if you do this obligation or build this special place for me, only then I'll be able to reside among you because of what you did.
Yes, I understand the reason. I think that, as I said, the subject of atonement and forgiveness is an enormous subject. It touches all the fibers of the human being.
Yes.
In the social world, in the relationship world, in the family, etc. So this was such a subtle and, as I say, deep and profound thing that it needed like a frame of reference. It needed a concrete place,
right,
where to happen.
Yep, agreed.
Could you also say that in some ways it's a weaker relationship? It's limited now to this building as opposed to everywhere. Like the second Luchos are limited in the sense that they're not what Hashem provided but what Moshe wrote.
Okay, so this brings us to the next, to as we always do, we have the Midrash, we spent a very long time on technical things that seem quite dry. Okay, and we have an answer to our question, but this raises another question, which is, has something fundamental shifted here in the relationship between the Jewish people and Hashem? Okay.
Can you repeat?
Something fundamental changed.
Has something fundamentally changed? It sounds like it. But there's a better question on the Midrash. Okay, this is what we always do. We understand the Midrash. We understand what question is it answering, what is its answer, and then we look for problems, difficulties. What is the difficulty or difficulties on the Midrash?
So it sounds like this is not for the Jewish people, it's for the other nations to see.
Okay, good. So what's the question?
I mean, why does it matter?
Why you're saying, why are we building a Mishkan for other people?
Shouldn't it be so that the Jewish people can know they were forgiven?
Okay, think methodology. A more basic, a simpler question on what the Midrash is saying. Right? What is the question the Midrash is answering? When was this said? And it says, this was said not where it appears in the Torah, rather this actually chronologically happened later on. But don't worry, because it's okay that the Torah is mishmashed. So what's the...
Why is it placed this way in the Torah?
There you go. That's the pertinent question. Why not place it in its chronological order?
So there must be some thematic reason why it's here.
Yes. Well, I wouldn't say I'd say either thematic or I would say in this case, there's a theological reason.
Right.
Meaning, because some things in the Torah, even if you are an advocate or believe that the events in the Torah don't always have to appear in the chronological order, Most of them do. So if the Torah is going to change the order of the chronological events, we have to assume there's a good reason for it. Right? We discussed this at length 2 weeks ago with Yitro, and we saw how profound a difference it makes, those two opinions. That opinion that says that Yitro came after Matan Torah, but it was placed before, and what profound differences this makes in how you view. I know it was a shir that got chopped up a lot, but it was we showed two very different approaches to some of the most important things in Judaism, based on those two opinions. So over here we're bringing only one. There are those who disagree with this. There are Midrashim that disagree with this. But this Midrash comes and says, and the obvious question is, well, why would the Torah? It's not like we're saying we're disagreeing. We're saying, okay, we accepted it happened later on. It makes sense. The math makes sense to us. Why would the Torah make believe? It didn't present it as happening beforehand. So yes, someone had their hand up beforehand. I didn't see who had it. Yes.
I'm looking at it as that the Torah isn't really out of line here, or out of place. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu already knew that the Bnei Yisrael were going to sin. It was inevitable that they were going to fall. Even though they'd already received the commandment that you're not supposed to make images of my liking or anything to worship. But he knew that they were going to fall. So if he gave the instructions to Moshe, or began the instructions to Moshe, so that he would have something to build it, even if we ask the question, why now? Because Kodesh Baruch Hu knew that they were going to fall, and they were going to need a place.
But wait. But it's a facade. Because the Midrash is saying that this mitzvah was actually given. When was it actually given? After Parshat Kitisa. In 3 weeks. This was actually said. But the editor, in this case the editor is God, the editor took chapter 10 and moved it up to chapter 7. But the events, it's like when you watch a movie and then suddenly it says, it says, you have a scene and it says, 3 months, it says, a year later. And then it jumps back to events of today. That's what happened. The story is going events as they happen, and then it says the story jumps forward 3 months, tells a portion of the story, and then it says, okay, now let's go back to current events. But the Torah doesn't tell you that it just jumped forward 3 months. So more, it just jumped forward, 60 days, 2 months. The Torah doesn't tell you, hey, by the way, I'm jumping forward 2 months, telling you something, and then I'm going to jump back 60 days. So the question is, why is the Torah trying to make believe as if the mitzvah of building a Mishkan was said now when it actually wasn't? That's our question.
Can it be related to the fact that forgiveness and atonement are dependent on the level of consciousness, and it may happen at any moment in any situation?
But I'll tell you why I don't think that's the direction. Because it looks like the Torah, on the simple level of it, is trying to steer you away from thinking that the Mishkan is a result of atonement. That's what it's doing. If the Mishkan, the obligation of building a Mishkan, appeared in its chronological place immediately after the atonement, then our conclusion would be the only purpose of the Mishkan is atonement. But by putting it earlier, it's as if it's trying to come and say, I don't want you to think of the Mishkan only as a replacement for, meaning, that's your question, Paul. I don't want you to think that something fundamental has shifted. I don't want you to think that the Mishkan and eventually the Beit Mikdash is a b'di'evid thing, is something that, and there are approaches like this. They come and say that the Mishkan, Rashi even says this, that the Mishkan would not have been commanded if it weren't for the sin of the golden calf. But this Midrash seems to be saying differently. Seems to be saying the Torah wants you to think of the obligation of the Mishkan happening as if there was no sin of the golden calf.
Can I try something? I'm just wondering whether...
The human being needs, as I said, a frame of reference. We needed a way to be in touch with all those contents, with all those meanings, with all this work.
You're right, but I agree, and the Torah the Midrash seems to be saying the Torah is going to an effort to make you think of it not as a secondary, after the fact part of the fixing the relationship. Paul, and then we have to look again at the last two lines. Wait, was someone did someone else have their hand up? I didn't see. No, sorry. Yes.
Just to try. I mean, we spent time, I think, sort of talking about the Ten Commandments weren't everything, and Mishpatim could be at the same level as the Ten Commandments. We don't want to differentiate the levels. Everything comes. It's all part of the 613. I mean, maybe all the laws with respect to the construction of the Mishkan and the Beis Mikdash are also at the same level as Mishpatim and as the Ten Commandments, and having them all flow together. He says that they're all part of the 613 Commandments.
I'm sorry. Say that again.
All of it?
No. The main point. I'm sorry.
So my suggestion is all the laws that follow in these next few parshas about building the Mishkan, the same level of importance as the Mishpatim and the Ten Commandments, and it's all part of Torah.
Okay.
As opposed to.
But why is it important? But why is it important that it? But why is it important to put it before, to make believe it was said when it wasn't? Why? Meaning, why is it important to make sure you don't meet this commandment right after the atonement from the golden calf? Why remove it from its chronological place? Everything from this point on is going to be, as a consequence, or all the laws that are going to be said from now to the end of the Torah are going to be understood as relating back to the revelation in some way.
I mean, couldn't it be? It seems to me almost too simple a solution. Like the Jews have done the worst thing they could possibly ever imagine doing, and if somebody says, you committed the worst crime, and your atonement is to build a building, that seems you got out pretty easy.
Are you saying it's gonna seem like that's a nice interpretation? You're saying it would be belittling the atonement. Yeah. You're not gonna get with it. You're not gonna get away with it that easily. Don't think that you could. Don't think that you could. That you're gonna. Right. Okay. That would be. I think that. Okay. That's an interesting interpretation. I think it's a very different one. I think it's the opposite of what the Midrash is going to say, but I think there's logic to that. Yes.
That if it would fall exactly in the chronological place, that it would always be that whenever we went to the Mishkan, where we went to our sanctuaries, we would always think of it, we are going here because of our sin, that it's always in our face, that we're constantly being reminded of our sin that we did. By a Kodesh Baruch Hu putting it here, he's saying, I'm going to give you a place to come and be with me, to come and worship with me, to come and be close to me. We're going to move it away from the actual sin. Let's remove it from that sin, so that it's not connected to the sin. So that when you go into your
absolutely, yes. I think that's. We're going to look at the Midrash. I think that's exactly what the Midrash is saying. Yes, yeah.
But doesn't that imply that you can't connect with Hashem unless you go to a sanctuary, which to me is a problem? The only place you can connect with Hashem is when you go into this building and... No,
it doesn't say... Well, again, no. Go back to your first observation. It doesn't say I will dwell in it. I will dwell... No, it does say I will dwell in them. Wait, we had, yes.
This may sound radical. If this wasn't here, but where it's supposed to be, is it possible that it would have made sin of the golden calf less severe? Because here, this is telling you, Hashem knew that Israel needed a way to deal with him, to have a relationship with him. So he said, build me a mishkan. If you would have said that here, and then Moshe disappeared, so they didn't know what to do. So the only way they thought of was they created a golden calf. They were trying to build a relationship with Hashem. So, whereas because he put it here, they knew what they were supposed to. They were supposed to build a mishkan, but they didn't. Instead, they built a golden calf.
I understand what you're saying. You're saying this could cause, if we were to take it at face value, if we're under the assumption that it was said now, and we only meet the sin of the golden calf in 2 parashas in Kitisa, it says, listen, you were already told that if you're going to build something, it has to be according to God's. Okay, could be, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure it would intensify it, because even with your explanation, it's a nice one, but a lot worse than that was the fact that, all that doesn't need to come close to the fact that they're doing something against the 10 Commandments, which they heard with their own ears from Hashem, right? Meaning, you understand what I'm saying? I'm saying Hashem himself said, do not make molten images.
But Aaron was the one who led him, because he saw that they were getting lost.
Okay, could be. Okay, let's go back to the Midrash and see at the end of the second paragraph. Here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows from the bottom. And on that day, the Holy One, blessed be He, told them, make me a sanctuary, that I may dwell therein. Here we go. Ready? So that the nations might know that He had forgiven them for the episode of the golden calf. It was called the sanctuary of testimony, for it bore witness that to the nations of the world, that the Holy One, blessed be He, dwelt within their sanctuary. It's interesting. These are 2 different statements. I'm going to read the first one again and tell me, who do you think the Midrash is referring to? So that the nations might know that He had forgiven them for the episode of the golden calf. Who does it sound like the Midrash might be hinting to? What?
The Canaanite nations? I don't know.
I mean, it's interesting, the Muslims say that they're the chosen people because the Jews lost it when they built the golden calf. And this is saying, no, they haven't.
Muslims and Christians. Classic Islam and classic Christianity, more so Islam, but also Christianity, that the sin of the golden calf is the point where the Jewish people lost it, and we lost favor. Now, I don't think this could be written with the Muslims in mind, though, because I think the Midrash predates Islam.
But it is written with something in mind, maybe. Maybe Hashem Yitbarach knew ahead that the nations of the world were going to accept the Torah. They are going to accept the Bible. They are going to accept all those, the same roots as we have. They are going to persecute us. They are going to don't let us live because of that. They are going to adapt.
Right.
Adopt
Yeah.
those things. So he knew ahead. So it was needed to say, so the nations of the world know that yes, there was a sin and there was a forgiveness, and now we are united through a place and through a ritual. Wait.
I agree, but there's a very important point here. I'll get back to the important point in a second. I think it's referring to the first Christians, to the early Christians. Wait, can you guys see me? You guys are frozen right now. You guys can hear me and see me?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, so I'll continue. So I think it might be hinting to the first Christians who were around already. Because remember, the Midrash, you're talking about around 1700 years ago. So you already have the early Christians. Okay, you do. The Midrash is written over a span of a couple hundred years, but up until the 5th century, parts of it still, of the Midrash that we're talking about. So I think it's talking about, you guys can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. But it's saying that the Mishkan becomes proof for the fact that the Jewish people have an steady, ongoing relationship with Hashem. But if it appeared in its chronological place, then I think what it's saying is that it would taint, as I forgot. So as you said before, it would taint the entire concept of the relationship as this type of physical relationship, or relationship that is manifested also in physicality, in a physical building, in the physical effort of human beings, in etc., etc. Oh, that's a result of the low level, because the Jewish people couldn't help themselves and they built a golden calf as a way to reach the divine. Okay, so instead of building a golden calf, no, you weren't supposed to do that, so build something else just like it. Just build it for me according to my instructions. And that it would make the entire context and understanding of connecting to God through the physical, and I'd say more importantly, through physical structures or physical locations, the land of Israel, Yerushalayim, Beit HaMikdash, Kodesh HaKodashim, and Aron. You guys still with me?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm only asking because you're frozen. I'm okay with that. I just want to make sure that we didn't get disconnected.
Canada's cold.
What?
Canada is cold.
Okay, right, nice. So it could put the entire association of a physical location as a venue, as a conduit, I'm not sure what word to use here, as a catalyst to connect to the divine. It would put it as something which is b'di'evid, something which is not, as if it wasn't the original plan, as if it is not part of the fundamental way in which we are supposed to and are able to connect to Hashem. So it comes and says, I want it to be a testimony to the fact, as he says here, for it bore witness to the nations of the world that the Holy One, blessed be He, dwelt within their sanctuary. And therefore, I think this is how the Midrash is building it. And this is not just giving, this Midrash doesn't appear as two separate Midrashim. It's not just explaining why it is that there's a sanctuary to bear witness, that God dwells within our sanctuary, dwells within us, that we can make something that God will connect to. This is not just that we can connect to God. Anyone can connect to God. You don't need to be Jewish to connect to God. But for God to connect to you, that is the most amazing thing. Every religion in the world connects to God. Man can go and do things and feel that he is connecting to God. But God coming to us and taking us out of Egypt and giving us Torah and commanding us to build something that He will then come and reside in it, or reside within us because we fulfilled His commandments, that is the testimony. That is the amazing thing. That is the message. You guys still with me?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So it is not just an attempt to give an answer to Batya's question, the first question of what is the purpose of the Bet HaMikdash or the Mishkan of a physical building, but it appears right after the explanation. The Torah doesn't always have to appear according to order. This commandment appears in the Torah in the wrong place. And what is the essence of this commandment? To bear testimony. It is important for the Midrash. The Midrash is saying it is important for the Torah to relay the concept of the sanctuary as testimony of the dual, the two-way relationship between the divine and the Jewish people. It is important for the Torah to present that not in the context of the sin. Not to think that the physical relationship with Hashem, or that the commandment to have a location, a physical location as a conduit for the relationship, is something which is b'di'evid. Now, why is this an important thing? Why did I choose this midrash? Because you will find throughout history and still today. Go look and read a little bit about the formation of the Reform movement, for instance, or some of the most fundamental, some of the first changes that the Reform movement made to Jewish belief and Jewish practice. It had to do with this idea. It had to do with the idea that a location cannot be unique and have more of a connection to God. And a people, you can't have one people with more of a connection. And you have that argument and that concept today as well. In a lot of different areas and a lot of different... So this idea here, I think the Midrash is doing something which is again, it could be debated, it could be discussed. Why, does it make sense? Does it not make sense? But the Midrash is doing something which is profound, and it's giving the explanation for the essence of the Mishkan, and saying, but it only works, or works better if we understand it not as the result of the sin, but this was going to happen anyway. In reality, there wasn't time for it yet until after the whole issue with the sin was resolved. But don't think of it, says the Midrash, as a result. Don't think of the Mishkan. Again, there are other opinions even within classic commentary. But this Midrash seems to be saying, don't think of the concept of a shul, of a physical conduit to connect to Hashem, as a result of the Jewish people not being up to the level. Okay, you need a physical thing, so instead of making your own physical thing, follow my instructions and make a physical thing, and at least you'll be doing it in a kosher way. Says the Midrash, no, God forbid. The Mishkan was always part of the plan. A holy place was always part of the plan. It was always part of the plan. It just so happens that I couldn't get around to it until after the issue of the sin was resolved. But if it would then appear in its chronological place, it would seem as a result of the sin that you demonstrated a lower level of relationship with God, and therefore I'm responding by giving you a kosher physical option of connecting to God. So in order to not think of the Mishkan and everything that goes with it, Bet Mikdash, Yerushalayim, Israel, meaning a physical location which is a conduit of the relationship and a demonstration of the relationship with Hashem, then the Torah says I have to put it in a place where it will not seem as a result of the sin.
And I still like very much Michael's comment about how we should feel when we're in the Beis Hamikdash or in a shul, that it shouldn't remind us of the sin, but rather the holy place.
I agree. Right? And therefore, because of what I just said now, what Michael said makes sense as well.
Yeah. But the other thing, I guess, is if the ultimate, when Mashiach comes, is the third Beis Hamikdash, and still yet a building that we all hope for. And I guess that also says that that's not a secondary way of relating.
Right. So I just want to summarize what we saw here. From a methodological perspective, we again met, because we're also trying to get the ideas, but we're also trying to see how does the world of Midrash work. So as far as the commentary tool that we call Midrash, we met the concept of En Mukdam U'Meuchar BaTorah. We met again this concept of that the Torah could appear in not according to the chronological order, and we saw why the Midrash felt, that it was necessary to put the Torah, or what purpose it served to put the Torah out of chronological order. And we also saw that within the Midrash, even though it says it in 2 sentences only, all of the verses that are all over Shemot and Devarim are the background of this Midrash. And we met this idea of the meaning of the Midrash, and that sometimes it might be also hiding in it certain kind of disputation with Christianity or with other future religions and claims and theological claims. That's it. So we met we saw some very good, clear methodology of Midrash, but also some in-depth ideas that stem from it.
Rabbi. So Rabbi, are you in Dubai next week?
Yes, I will be in Dubai next week, but there shouldn't be an issue. Assume that class will be taking place as usual. I just might be using a lower tone so as not to be yelling psukim and
It's a prayer meeting, so drown this out.
Right.
Is the time the same?
Maybe.
Is they in the same time zone as Israel?
No, I think they're an hour. I'm not sure. I have to check. But either way, it's going to be at night. So by that time, I should be back from the show and in the hotel.
Much success there. Safety.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Be safe.
Shavua tov. Bye bye.